tonight. Deadly day. Almost 200 are killed in Baghdad violence. 100 ships and fishing boats are trapped in ice jams off Newfoundland and Labrador. Can they be freed before it's too late? An amazing story about an 89-year-old woman rescued from the brink of death on a railroad track. And insomniacs beware.
I had a cracked front tooth. I had 3 broken ribs.
It all happened while she was asleep. Our health reporter, Maureen Taylor, has a special report on the dangers of sleeping pills.
The National. Here is Peter Mansbridge.
Good evening. It is a near daily occurrence, violence and bloody death in Iraq. But today, for even the most hardened, the level of destruction and carnage appalls. 4 bombs, 183 people dead. One single explosion killing at least 127. Well, as you've seen and heard for yourself over the past few days, media coverage of the Virginia Tech shooting has been widespread. Television, radio, internet. Perhaps no one wants answers more than students themselves at campuses across the United States and in Canada as well. The CBC's Kelly Crow now with how the student media are handling the tragedy.
Album Caravan, which is available online right now.
89.5 FM. We're speaking with Jen Spangler. She's a research program coordinator in the psychology department at Virginia Tech.
At the University of Toronto radio station, the Virginia Tech school shooting is the top story.
He could see on the drill field just outside his office window the visible chaos of students and police.
This is as close as they can get to the story, interviewing a woman who was on the Virginia Tech campus during the shooting.
Has the shock worn off, or are people still kind of in shock and trying to absorb what's happened there?
I think people are still absorbing what's happening. The initial shock, the adrenaline rush is coming down, and I think more of a numbness has settled in.
The real story for these student journalists is, what does it all mean to them? Radio station volunteer Andy Frank is the senior producer of the campus radio morning show.
I know that for some of us, myself included, this one really hit home, and I don't know why. And we relate somehow to that campus, I suppose, because when you look at the layout of the campus over there, and you look at our campus and the old buildings, and you can just picture it happening here. We know that the major media are going to be covering all the sensational stuff, so we're not going to try to compete with that. We're not going to try to be on the scene down at Virginia Tech. So I think it was most important was to get a sense of how does everybody feel down there. That we could do, because that we were able to establish. But more importantly, it was how does this relate to the University of Toronto, and how does this relate to this campus over here, and what can we do to minimize the damage should this ever happen over here. I think that is the overriding theme here in terms of our coverage, and that will continue to be that.
So what if it happened here? What if a Cho Seung-hui or Mark Le Pen or Kim Vir-Gil style gunmen were in our midst? How would the University of Toronto react? And are we ready? Joining us to answer some of these difficult questions is Rob Steiner. He's the Assistant Vice President of Strategic Communications for the University of Toronto. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now it all comes down to this. Is the University of Toronto ready for something like this?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, I don't think anyone is fully prepared for someone to walk onto a campus and do something like this. Let me tell you, though, how it would work here in all likelihood. And I think what one aims to do is to minimize and contain whatever's happening if it happens. So that we don't have to lock every building and make you guys pass through metal detectors every time you walk into a class, which would be wrong and impractical.
Rob, I grew up in the States, and lockdown procedures are practiced quite frequently in high schools.
Student journalist Megan Hall isn't satisfied when this university official says they are reviewing campus security.
Is it not just up to the university to be prepared for something like this to occur, but also the students, so that the students in a situation know exactly how to react?
What I do see is I see students, generally speaking, reacting properly. from what I can tell, and I'm not a safety or security professional. But they're doing a couple of things. One is they're hiding, and they're closing the doors and they're hiding, and they're protecting themselves and protecting each other. The other is that they're communicating out, which is really important because we may or may not be able to get a message to everyone right away, but the more that students turn on their own communication systems to tell their peers, their colleagues, not to come on campus, to stay away, etc., the more that actually helps the situation.
She preferred the situation in her American high school, where they held drills to practice what to do if a shooter came into class.
I believe that in a situation in which if there was someone in the building with an actual gun, although there would be chaos, we would have a plan, and that people would feel prepared for what was going to be going on. Whereas here, you know, what are you supposed to do? Where are you supposed to run? Where are you supposed to congregate? Are you supposed to, you know, scatter? What exactly is supposed to happen? It's kind of, I don't know. I think there needs to be some kind of plan.
Are there not some other low-tech means that we can use as well? Sirens, PA systems?
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely a need for like a campus-wide PA system. So if something like this does happen, someone can punch in and everyone in the entire campus will hear.
Across campus at the office of U of T's student newspaper, The Varsity, Chandler Levac is just 2 weeks into her job as editor of the largest student newspaper in Canada.
Well, I think in the university campus, like, there are people that are just, you know, it's hard to kind of integrate yourself into university, and there are people that are sheltered and they're alone. And
that's definitely something I want to talk about, because it's disturbing to think that, you know, that there are people who aren't, you know, necessarily really integrated into the community and stuff, and I think that's why it's...
You have a group of 50,000 people. You're going to have people who don't fit the mold. You're going to have people who slip through the cracks. And
especially as campus media, I mean, what's our position to take on this? How does a newspaper bring students together that feel alienated and disenfranchised? I think we have responsibility to our students, and I think we have a responsibility in delivering a specifically Canadian standpoint or view on the issue, but still remaining respectful to what has transpired and being able to kind of hit the message home on a personal level, on a student level, on an emotional level. And we don't want to sensationalize the incident, we don't want to glorify it, we don't want to encourage copycats.
For the newly appointed comment writer, Ben Spur, this will be his first editorial, writing about the Virginia Tech shooting.
You know, I think there are a lot of problems with the way that the media covers stuff like this, and I certainly don't want to be part of that problem. Like, you don't want to be part of the overblowing situations and stuff. So, you know, I'm wary of that, and also you want to be critical of things without diminishing, you know, the loss of human life, you know, that's happened. So that's definitely a fine line to walk.
This is CIUT 89.5 FM, the University of Toronto Community Radio Station.
World News, here is Mr. David Peterson. The question of why is perhaps the greatest struggle of all. A sketchy picture of the shooter has begun to emerge.
How to keep it from happening here? It's a debate these student journalists say they will be leading.
I think it's important that we don't let the issue go for that particular reason. And it's something that the University of Toronto students should be able to look at this radio station and their newspapers and so on at leading.
The only person who might have been able to answer why someone could commit such a horrific and cowardly act, Choi Seung-hai, took his own life in perhaps final act of cruelty. In other news,
Kelly Crow, CBC News, Toronto.